I think people that DM anyway don't have anything better to do. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, if you're going to DM that just to DM that,
Yeah.
what are you really doing with your life? Like, why don't you go to the gym,
Yeah.
go do something?
And it's funny too, because sometimes like I'll just be, all mad and ornery. So I'll look at a mean message and I'll respond something back.
Yeah.
But like always something nice, kill them with kindness. And then the person that sent the hate message will be like, "You're really pretty though." Like, I'm like, okay. So being around other people, I'm realizing that's where they're, paying their bills from, is not even from the fight money. It's from the sponsorships, and people will pay you to go eat at their restaurant. It's so crazy. I don't want to just be another person that looks good on social media. I want to use social media, one, to make money, but above all else, help other people and bring awareness.
All right, Mikey, we are recording now. And so I'm guessing what people want to know and what we don't quite understand. I know it's entertainment value. I completely get what like Dana's doing. But why Power Slap?
So it's definitely not something I ever thought I'd be doing. But, going through a lot of things in my life, I really struggled with the bulimia and all of that. And when I finally got over it, I felt like something was missing. I felt like that took so much away from me and so much time. So I was ready to, get back on the horse and do something great. And I was looking at all the MMA outlets because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I love MMA so much. I knew I still wanted to be around it. And I was thinking about getting into broadcasting, and I was looking at smaller organizations because, you can't just start at UFC.
Yeah.
And as I was looking into it, I stumbled across Power Slap. And at first I thought, wow, this would be so great to get into commentating for Power Slap. And then the more I looked into it and the more I saw, it's owned by Dana, all the right things. It's growing so fast. I was like, okay, maybe I do want to be a part of this. And I kind of reached out to them, and then they offered like, we think you have the look, you're in Vegas. Sure. Why don't you be a part of this?
Yeah.
And
sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say like, yeah, because just for context, for camera, we have trained before, and I just want to get people on the timeline. So, when you were training for a fight, I remember, right? Because we have rolled in jiu-jitsu before. And was this before or after like the bulimia, which we'll get into after we talk about, like Power Slap and all that stuff. Was it before or did the Power Slap thing happen after the bulimia thing or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Power Slap thing happened about November of last year is when I first got into it. And then my first competition was December of last year. So and then in January of last year is when I got treatment and started my recovery process. So last year was really just like a very crucial year for me and a changing year. And then, so, I love MMA and wanted to fight and stuff. And so with the Power Slap, I got into it because I was interested in maybe being like behind the scenes broadcasting or commentating. And then, they said, I think you have the look, you live in Vegas. Like, would you want to do one? And I said, yes, of course. Like, or actually I was iffy about it at first because I just saw the guys doing it. And then I was like, man, I don't know. But then when I started seeing the girls, I was like, all right, no, I can do this for sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, what was your thought process, right? It was like, okay, this, I'm sure to everyone, including that's in power slapping, it's kind of weird at first.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, wait a minute. But like me and my camera guy, Adam, were talking about, well, it is still entertainment. And what you were saying about like, you wanted to get in commentary, I kind of knew that was coming because it's a means to like an end almost.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it does get you to like places, right? Especially working for an association that's pretty much associated with the UFC or a promotion that's associated with the UFC. You get a lot of notoriety, you get a lot of exposure and all that. Was that like pretty much the path that you were looking into when you were looking into like the power slap thing?
Absolutely. Originally, that was the goal, and I was, it's all the same people really that run UFC basically. So it was the right thing. But then when I did my first one, I was kind of thinking, I think I'm just going to do one.
What's going on, guys? Just a quick announcement. If you're watching and listening on YouTube, if I can ask you, please hit the like and subscribe button. And also, if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, if you can leave a quick review and hit the follow button, it really helps out to reach to more audiences. And as always, thank you for your love and support. And now back to the show.
Make money mainly.
And that was with Paige Van Zandt on March, right? It was that one? Was that
my first one was in December, and it was against a girl named Emily Whitmire, who was also in the UFC.
That's right. Yeah. She used to train us in the kids too.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
So then, I really had no expectations. I just wanted to do what I thought was going to get me around the right people. And then I ended up, really liking it, which sounds crazy. And I didn't take really damage like I thought I was going to. So I was like, I can absolutely do this again.
Yeah.
And then, the page got booked a few months later. And then that was our first one against each other. And then now, in about 5 weeks, I'm rematching her for like the first female title. So
that's in, July? Is it July?
June 27th.
June 27th. Yeah. That's interesting because I think in Power Slap, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how they're going to promote it. I don't know how big it's going to get. But interestingly enough, you're pretty much in like the early stages, right? Like as far as women.
Absolutely.
The women division, actually the whole thing, but in the women's division. So in a way, that's a good thing for the notoriety and the exposure. Now, I understand that the one coming up in a few weeks is for like a title, right? Yeah, exactly. So talk to me through, man, like for people, and especially for me, I get why people do the sport like we just talked about, but explain me your process. How did you feel going into it? Like, how do you feel now going into it? Like as far as just the sport itself, it's kind of like, how do you even train for it?
Yeah, that's everyone's main question is how do you train for Power Slap? And to be honest, like you said, I'm in the very beginning stages of Power Slap. I'm, it's a new promotion. I'm kind of one of the first trying it out. So for the first one, I didn't know how to train for it. I kind of just did what I thought was right. So, a lot of hooks and practice the slapping.
Like turn the hip.
Yes, exactly. And like everything I found on YouTube because, and then I watched as much as I could, but there's really not much to watch. So going into that first one, I really didn't know how to train. And then after I got the experience, which was on stage, I realized like, okay, and being around the others, okay, this is not like a fight at all. And the slap is not like a hook. So you think, or I thought generating the most power, I'm going to like go to throw a hook, right?
Sure.
And that is absolutely not the way to do it. Like you have to completely just throw it like a slap because that's how the guys are getting all the knockouts.
Like just with the hands, like no body. It's not even the body.
Yeah, when you watch, like really, it's just, and it's really not even about power. It's about the speed and like kind of like whipping
the precision or something.
Yeah, instead of like getting that power behind it. So now that I know that, I've just kind of trained in terms of like just reps, really hitting. And especially since I've hit Paige before, now I kind of know how to hit her right. And
you found the what Justin Gaethje would say, the centripetal force.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You just kind of like found where the sweet spot is.
Yep. Yeah. And I know what her face feels like. So.
Right. No, I think you make a good point. As ridiculous as it kind of sounds, you know what I mean? It's kind of like the sweet spot. It's just okay. Look, I think everything that we do in life is a skill, even with the most like unorthodox things that we do, right? Like power slapping. It's kind of like, well, you still have to move your hand like a boxer, you know what I mean? And you could find, like you said, the sweet spot. And what's funny about that is that like when you talk about like you could feel like the construct of her face. I think that's like very important. I think if you could like, cause you'll kind of feel out where her like most vulnerable spot on her face is.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
Like compared to Emily, their faces are literally feel different on my hand.
How?
Paige is like really small right here. Like she has a very small jaw. And even like the way she kind of like puts her shoulders up a little bit, I wasn't able to hit her flush the way I felt like I was able to hit Emily. Yeah. So, and I know too, like I can take a hit from Paige Van Zandt because, that's a little bit of a mind game going into it. Me just,
it's psychological.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially her as the opponent,
Right. What did you get like like, I guess you could say butterflies or the heebie-jeebies going, because Paige Van Zandt has been around for a little bit, right? Like she has a pretty illustrious career, actually, you know, in the UFC, and then, you know, with bare knuckle, and obviously with the looks and stuff like that, which we'll get into as well, because that was a light bulb moment when you said that. I'm glad you brought that up, so I don't feel awkward talking about it. But I mean, I think, you know, when, again, back to the notoriety thing, it's like, look, she already has this like platform, right? Because she's been in the UFC. And I think the way I see it, it's more of like a collaboration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's kind of like you're collabing with someone on Instagram that has a lot of followers, right? You know, and then you're getting your name up there, and then eventually you'll have that platform.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So can you talk more about that? Because I know that's just like a heavy topic, and you do have, you know, you do have the title coming up. So what do you do leading up to that? Like, I've seen some of your Instagram. Does your diet have to be, is that a big thing? Like the diet thing, and you know what I mean? Like, what's the biggest, I guess what I'm trying to ask is that, what's the biggest, I guess you could say, preparation to go into something like that? Because you do have the spotlight on you too, you know, and emotionally, how do you prepare for that?
So emotionally, first of all, I know very well how a lot of people think of Power Slap. So, you know, I just take it with a grain of salt.
How would you describe that?
They hate it. And
really? I mean, I don't know if hate's the word, no?
If you saw my DMs, you would be like, that's hate. Yeah. And it's like one thing to hate the organization, but I get crazy messages and like people just, for me doing it, like they hate me because I do it. So
because you have a pretty face too, right? Is that kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, well, why is a pretty girl like that doing Power Slap?
Yeah.
You know, I know it's an awkward conversation to have, but then it's what every guy's like thinking.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, wait, why would you do that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And they don't like Power Slap. So I just know that. And the first one, you know, and I've never been in the spotlight before. So the first time being in a spotlight and like getting kind of hate messages for the first time did hurt my feelings.
So interesting.
And now I've done a lot better. So sometimes it still hurts my feelings, but I know it's coming now. So it's a lot less. And I just don't give it any really time of day.
Sure. I think people that DM anyway don't have anything better to do. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, if you're going to DM that just to DM that, what are you really doing with your life? Like, why don't you go to the gym and go do something?
You know it's funny too, because sometimes like I'll just be, you know, all mad and ornery. So I'll look at a mean message and I'll respond something back, but like always something nice, you know, kill them with kindness. Sure. And then the person that sent the hate message will be like, you're really pretty though. Like, I'm like, okay, so do you hate me or not?
There's probably like a backsided goal to that, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you just want to get in there and then, you know, so being a guy, like I get it. Like I don't do it, but I get what they're trying to do. You know, it's kind of like just to get them to get noticed. And then all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, by the way, besides my shit talking, but you know, the interesting thing about like comments and stuff, since I am doing this now too, right? Like it's a platform as well. When you get a comment, it's so asymmetrical to like a positive one and a negative one. What I mean is that you could get 1,000 like, oh, you're so beautiful. And man, you really killed that match with Paige Van Zandt, and then you get one negative comment, and then it's like, fuck her. You know what I mean? It's just like one comment kills the whole thing. Yeah,
for sure.
So can you talk about like the notoriety that you've been getting off Power Slap, since we are, you know, you just said it a little bit of it, but can you get more into it? Can you maybe give me an example of what like, you kind of already did, but can you give me another example of what like someone would say on your DMs? Because I find that kind of I didn't expect that. I find the hate DMs to be weird. I understand that people will comment and they'll be like, why? You know, but then the hate comment would be like, okay, buddy, like you're going too far with it.
When it gets personal, it's kind of when you're like, all right. Because like I said, I respect other people's opinions and I can see why people don't like Power Slap, of course. You know, at first I didn't even know how I felt about it. And then when I really like looked at it, okay, this isn't, if you go into it watching and think, okay, let's watch like the great martial arts performance, you're going to be let down because that's not what it is. And I think that's what people are looking at it. Yeah, but nobody's saying it's that. Like, I'm not here to tell you, I'm going to go show you the most amazing elite athletic ability on that stage. No,
that's so funny.
I'm going up there. I'm going up there to win and be powerful and tough, but also it's, you know, it's entertainment. And when you go into it and look, to be entertained, then you'll enjoy it a lot more, and you won't hate it so much. So that's kind of what I just been trying to show people. But yeah, the messages, I think just come from that, not understanding why somebody would do it, or maybe because they wouldn't do it themselves. They think it's crazy anybody else would do it.
Sure.
But
we've seen crazier, but it just, again, going back to it, it's like the hate comment that doesn't make any sense. Like completely. I'll try to wrap my head around that. And I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't go around just talking shit, because again, you can see the art in everything. And what I mean by that is not necessarily like the art of power slapping, but then the art of like getting to where you want to go.
Exactly.
That's also something like, if you have a goal, well, what are the steps to get there? That's one of them. I mean, it's ran by Dana White, and it's a big fucking promotion.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. People in their entertainment business, that's actually how they start, you know, right? Like you go on podcasts like these or another podcast, and then it's the same exact thing almost. You're promoting yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I find that very interesting. Like I said, I found, before we move on to the bulimia and stuff like that, I'd like to talk about that, because I think it does affect a lot of people, and not just with that particular illness within itself, but the things that come with it, depression, anxiety, and stuff like that. But we'll talk about that in a minute. I was very fascinated by your Instagram, right? Because usually, full transparency, I'll with like high profile guests, I'll Wikipedia, you know what I mean? That's like my thing. But then the next best thing is Instagram.
Yeah.
And I find yours to be quite interesting, actually, because nowadays you have like, I guess you could say influencer models, right? And I get it. That's another thing that I think gets a lot of, personally, just in my opinion, I used to be like any other guy, right? I'd be like, why? You know what I mean? It's like, well, fuck, man. She's an attractive girl. She has to use it to her advantage. She has to work with what she got. So like, you know what I mean? You grow up and then you kind of see that. But I find yours interesting because it's actually pretty informative. And I think you should do more of those videos where you're like kind of vlogging about your day, like a vlog style, like what you eat. I think particularly for your demographic or who you're trying to reach, maybe it's women or something like that. I think it's very helpful. You know, can you talk more about like the insights and what you post and all that stuff, what your motive is, I guess?
Okay, yeah. I didn't know at first, like I said, going into Power Slap, I wasn't sure what my exact goal was. You know, I thought like broadcasting. And then after I kind of blew up, I guess, like a little bit blew up after the page thing.
Before you go on, was it that? Because I heard somewhere on an interview, like all of a sudden overnight, you got like 22,000 followers or something like that.
Yeah, so going into the match with Paige, my first one about 7 weeks ago, you know, I only had, I think like 3,000 followers, nothing crazy. And then just the build up for it when they announced it, you know, I got to do a collaboration with Nina.
I saw that too.
All kinds of people were looking
Nina
at it. Yeah, that was so cool, by the way, because I totally look up to her.
I like her, man. I follow her, like her content and stuff like that. It's funny as shit.
It is. She's great. So that helped me out. Power Slap promoting me, UFC posted me on their page a few times.
Cool, so very cool.
Just kind of with all that. And then of course the match itself really blew up within 3 weeks, I want to say. So I wasn't expecting it because, you know, I knew Paige has, you know, all the followers and I consider her famous. So she's pretty famous herself. Absolutely. But her past matches, the opponents she went against didn't quite blow up themselves. So for me, I was just assuming like, okay, you know, it's going to be comparable to their social medias, you know, like the 1,000 or 2,000 followers that they gained. That's what I was expecting. So when I think I gained like over 30,000, but not only that, like brands were wanting to work with me. People were reaching out to me and I wasn't expecting it. Like I thought I was just going to go back to my job being a waitress and then my whole life changed.
Where did you work at before? Just for context?
I was a waitress at the Durango at Summer House. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Where?
Summer House.
Summer House. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool.
I love it.
I've worked the service industry pretty much all my life.
Okay.
Too. Not anymore, but yeah, I think it was just interesting. Sorry,
go on. It's a grind.
It is a fucking grind. Yeah. It's there's a lot of bullshit that comes with it, but go on.
So yeah, I just thought I was going to, you know, make my money, get on stage, make my money,
get some exposure a little bit.
Exposure and stuff. And then, go back to work being a waitress. And that didn't happen. I was grateful and I was lucky enough to be able to quit my job after that and kind of have all these other opportunities.
Was it because you saw the opportunity, or did someone offer you like pay? Like, you know what I mean? Did you want to get secure first and then quit your job? Or did you just quit your job because you were like, oh, I know where it's going? Because usually that's what kind of gets people not to quit their job, because of the uncertainty, right? So did you want to get secure first, or did you get security first, or did you just be like, I know where this is going, fuck it. I'm going all the way.
It was kind of like both of those. So I had the security in the way that money I was able to put in my savings account. But, I loved being away. Like, I loved my job at the Durango, and I had benefits and I was making good money. All my friends were there. So it's not like I was itching to leave. So I knew, okay, if I leave my job, I don't have set income. I'm praying that I do another power slap, but that's not guaranteed.
Sure.
It's basically, I have 5 months saved up in my savings account. And if I'm not making money every month, that's going to be gone. I'm going to go back to work. So it was definitely a risk. And I asked a friend his advice, because he's like, he's in MMA and stuff. And so I wanted to ask somebody that I trusted. So I was like, listen, I want to quit my job because I think I can do some great things. And I think being comfortable is kind of holding me back from those things. Yeah. But I also don't want to make a wrong decision. And then after I got some advice, I was like, okay, I need to take the risk. Worst case scenario, I go back to work. Yeah. But it's all really worked out since then.
Very good. There's a couple of light bulbs that just in that, segment right there that you talked about. Number one, listen, the industry guys, yes, we could always go back to it. And we're very blessed that we make the type of money that we do without like formal education, right? It's kind of like, wait a minute, this is an anomaly.
Yeah.
If you go to my hometown like San Diego, and then even in downtown, you're not going to get the level of like tips that you make over there, even working at like a smaller scale restaurant from here, because we're so industry based and customer service based.
Absolutely.
The other thing is too, I highly respect that. I'll tell you why, because you could go back to your job, but then if you have the balls to decide to go all the way with it, if you do it for long enough, you'll get somewhere. But a lot of people don't like the uncertainty. You know what I mean? They're monkey mind is going ape shit. It's like they're almost in fight or flight mode when they think about like, oh, I got to quit my job. Oh my God, I got to pay mortgage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you can, and I'm not saying I get it. There's a lot of stress to that. Financial stress is a big burden. But if you decide, like, you're technically deciding if you're going to make money or not, it's going to come into fruition. Now, I'm not going to tell you how. It might be faith. I don't, what I mean? But I think it's a great point that you brought up. It's almost like, the very worst case, if you happen to just lose everything, like say your 5 months of savings, you can go back, so that's just what I wanted to touch on that. But keep going with the story.
Yeah.
Sorry, I kind of
you're good. No,
cut you off.
No, you're good. I like the conversation. Trust me, because everything else, seriously, answer one question. Okay, let's move on to the next. This is great.
This is how it is.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So where'd you go from there? Yeah.
So it was a big risk because it's like, okay, I have 5 months saved up, but I've never had money like that. So the idea of blowing through it, like, I think some people look at it like, oh my gosh, that must be so amazing. And it is amazing. I got to quit my job, but it's scary as hell too, because especially because I loved my job. And so, but, I'm grateful because one, the power slap came through and, I get to do it. Not only do I get to do it for the title, but it's going to be International Fight Week. Yeah. And so the exposure, the things I'm going to be around is basically a dream. So I'm so excited. That's the fact amazing. That I get to make money off of it. Like, so.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's, with the whole job thing. So before I forget, what's interesting about that is that it's not only like our situation, right, on a smaller scale, but then like high level fighters, it's like, dude, if they lose, that's like the majority of the people that I talk to, some people got kids and stuff like that. And if they lose, that's like half their purse. Yeah. So I get the uncertainty of it, even at the highest level of the UFC, even the people that you watch on TV, it's kind of, I think people have distorted frame of mind, and I'm lucky enough to talk to these fighters and get like the real insights of it. and to be vulnerable like that, because when you see these fighters, it's kind of like they're on the big stage. People or thousands of people are watching them, and then you just automatically assume that they're like making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right. It's not boxing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's a hard life, but it's a life that if you love it and you have no regrets, it's worth living.
For sure.
Right?
And I think today we're seeing too, the fighters that are doing the best financially are not doing the best financially because of their fight money. They're getting sponsorships.
Yes.
And that's my goal is to, and when you ask about my Instagram, that's my goal too. Like with all that is there's money there that I never even knew was there, but being around other people, I'm realizing that that's where they're, paying their bills from is not even from the fight money. It's from the sponsorships, and people will pay you to go eat at their restaurant.
Yes.
It's so crazy.
Yes. It's so technically where you're getting into, because this is, I love these conversations because interestingly enough, we have more in common than what you think, right? It's like getting to know the other person, and then you have these similarities. And where I'm getting to is that you're talking about like being a brand. You know what I mean? Like the influencer part, I think it's been sabotaged to the T. Like, influencer, and then people will make a judgment about it.
For sure.
But I think it's just your own brand, right? You're marketing yourself. And that's a very, very powerful tool, because now that you're getting exposure from Power Slap, from these brand deals, and then you're collaborating with people like the UFC and other, a lot more people would influence. Well, I mean, you're literally like a walking money machine. You know what I mean? If you do it right, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Or if you don't do it right, I guess, I don't know, Yeah, but I think that's very interesting, because I'm delving into it too. You kind of brand yourself, and then you have your own personality, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of create this thing. And what you were talking about with Instagram, and do you have a YouTube channel, by the way?
I'm making one.
Okay, cool. What can you talk about what it's going to be about? Just out of curiosity for my own thing, because this is like pretty much on YouTube and Spotify and all that stuff.
It's going to be a kind of a mix of everything, because I want to show myself as a person, but also people have so many questions about Power Slap.
Is it like vlog style? Like, you know what I mean?
I'm going to do like sit down and like vlog style, but I also want to do like a cooking. So a weekly cooking thing. The first one I did by myself, I recorded it already. It just hasn't come out yet. Sure. And then I would love to get people in the MMA world, slap world, like just all kinds of different people on there, but not so serious, but also, get their opinions on Power Slap, or maybe talk to them about it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a vibe.
Exactly.
Right? Like it's a vibe kind of thing. Cool. Yeah, that's very, very cool. So yeah, we'll kind of switching off. So this is again like a self-improvement. I like to personally, what I consume is a lot of like psychology and psychiatry videos, because I think it's very important, especially in this modern age that we're living in technology, right? We talk about social media, but there are some downsides to it, right?
For sure.
A lot of, especially women in particular, to be honest with you, right? Because they're a lot more self-conscious, right? Because of their looks, more than men are. Men, we take like 3 minutes and then we're out to get ready. It's like, whatever. But yeah, I think with social media, with the rise of social media and technology, it's a comparison game.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though you're using it as a tool for business, you can't help but to kind of, compare yourself with that. Have you ever had any problems dealing with that? Like, have you ever thought about that? Being on social media, maybe. And the other thing is, I don't think people take it. I don't think they think of it consciously, but subconsciously, I think it's affecting them.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
100%. I think social media is like the biggest influence in your everyday life. Even if you don't think about it, whatever you're consuming is what you're thinking about. Whether it's in the front of your mind or the back of your mind.
Garbage in, garbage out, right?
Absolutely. And I think for me, that's another big thing, because, I don't want to just be another person that looks good on social media. I want to use social media, one, to make money, but above all else, help other people and bring awareness. Okay. But at the same time, with my brand being, if we're completely honest, I'm in the position, I'm in Power Slap. One, I'm an amazing person. I know that, sure. I have a great work ethic, but at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure I got the opportunity I got because of, the way that I present myself, and the views were coming in, because of the looks, if we're being honest. It's the most awkward thing to say. And like, I say it in the most humble way possible, but to me, that's the truth. And now, I didn't get the rematch just because of that. I got the rematch because I was tough as hell out there. And I even got Paige because I was tough as hell after the first one. But those views for sure are, I think, are both like.
I love that, man. This is why we're here for. It's to be, like I told you, during our back and forth messages, it's to be candid. It's okay. Look, people have a hard time talking about it, just like you, right? Especially with women, right? I want to bring that up because it's particularly hard for them because, well, they don't want to seem like that type.
Yeah.
And it's tenfold, right? Like compared to men. Men are thinking the same thing. Like, I don't want to look like an asshole. But for women, it's dialed up, more. And, even with you just saying that, I could tell you had a hard time saying it. Right? You were just like I was like, in my mind, I was like, just say it. It's all right. You know what I mean? And it's what we're all thinking, and that's why we do these podcasts and stuff like that to bring light to it. But listen, back to what we were talking about. I think that you have to play to your strengths. And I think if you do it right, and I think if you are trying to give good value to the world, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you have good intentions, and then, why not use your looks to bring it in light? Like use everything. That's a resource. That's a fucking resource. Like it's like anything else. It's a tool, right? That whoever you believe in, God or whoever, gave you.
Yeah.
So why the fuck not use it to your advantage? And look, I'll say it again, that I used to be one of those guys. I used to be like, come on, man. Why is she like posing for the camera? Full transparency. But doing creative work now and growing up, over the years and just being an old guy, you just start to see, I guess you could say, the beauty and creativity in what people are doing. It's like, hell, man, she's just trying to do her thing. She's trying to get a good, and there's nothing wrong with that. But even till this day, people have a hard time talking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But no, I really like what you're doing. Can you speak more on that about like how much, so I guess how much would you say your looks have gotten you to the point where you're at? Just to be like honest, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just to be honestly, like I think
obviously it's a big one. Like, elephant in the room.
It is.
It's a big one. Yeah.
But it's just the truth. And like I said, I say it as humbly as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For the opportunity, I would say they were looking for females in Power Slap. So
they needed that market.
They needed that.
Yeah.
But from going from that first one, yes, I beat Emily Whitmire and it was a good performance, but to only have one, not only win, but competition in Power Slap and then get Paige Van Zandt directly after when there's other females around, I think that definitely had a lot to play into it. Now, when it comes to, the Instagram blowing up or brands wanting to work with me, I do think not only the looks, but the way I present myself has a lot to do with that. And, getting that immediate rematch. Again, I was tough as hell on that stage, all of that.
And you were a little bit of a showmanship. Like you were doing that, you were doing the highlights with the, what I mean? Like that was great. I think that's a part of it.
Yeah.
It's not just the looks thing. It's the way your demeanor is.
Yeah.
It's your mannerisms, like, up on stage. It's your showmanship. Like, that's why people be talking shit, right?
Yeah,
like Conor McGregor style. Yeah.
So I think, the looks play into it, but I think it's everything all around. But I will say, looks do have a lot to do with everything. Even when you see Paige Van Zandt, she's so pretty. And
that's a great point.
She's done so many different things. And I feel like she's gotten a lot of her opportunity. She's very talented and I don't want to take any of that away from her. But, Paige because she's the pretty girl. And she was like definitely one of the first like pretty feminine fighters.
Yeah.
So I think just in general, that's just how life works. And, it's just, and I think it's not even so much how I look, but I think the femininity that comes with it.
Right.
And I know a lot of people kind of comment on that, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do Power Slap. And I don't even think it's so much about the way my face looks. I think it's because I am very feminine and soft. So then to go get hit in the face and then hit someone as hard as I can and love it, it just really throws people off.
Well, listen, like I said, I have a different point of view, especially when it comes to talking to you, because I have trained with you before. And you're there putting in the work. Like, it's one thing to be a pretty face. It's another thing to actually go do the damn thing. And that's what I respect. And that's why I asked you to be on, because if I didn't really know you, right? And if I just saw you at gym and I actually didn't like roll with you, we've rolled before, like I said, and then I'd be like, you know what I mean? It'd be less of an interest. And I'm just being honest, but I'm like, this girl's she's action. She's you know what I mean? She's actually there putting in the work. I saw again on your Instagram, you're training. You train for boxing, and then you had that boxing match. I mean, shit. If that's not like, that's very, very respectable. As far as, dude, you're getting in there trying to punch someone in the face, and then you're actual in competition. Even before the actual competition itself, the hard part is getting there and weight cutting, you know what I mean? And all that stuff. So it's like, how can you knock on that? Right. Like, and for me, I had a personal experience with that since I did train with you. So even much more respect to you. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. The big thing that I want to talk about is the bulimia, because I actually saw that recently. And like I said, I do watch a lot of like psychology videos and I'm just into, human behaviors and all that stuff. So I think this relates, and mental health and all that. So can you, I guess, just talk about your experience with bulimia? How long did you have it for? When did you identify it? How did you deal with it? So on and so forth. And then we'll go from there.
I'm looking forward to talking about this because that's my goal with everything. My main goal is to bring awareness to it. But just a forewarning, I'm probably going to cry because I cry every single time I talk about it. But I still want to talk about it. Yeah,
that's what we're here for. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so
we're good.
But first and foremost,
safe space.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I want to use everything to bring like awareness to eating disorder, just because it is like, like you see a lot of mental health talk about anxiety and depression and stuff, but there's not much about eating disorder. And for me, I struggled with the depression and anxiety, and I it all stemmed from the eating disorder. So it was definitely over 10 years ago, because I'm 26 right now. And so it started like my freshman year of high school. So like probably like 13 years ago. Don't make a joke about my math, please. I think that's 13. Yeah, 13 years ago.
Probably not the right time. Go ahead.
That's when someone pops up a CTE joke right there.
Don't worry about it.
So yeah, about 13 years ago, I developed an eating disorder. Eating disorders, it's not just cut and dry on what it is. So it's like kind of bounced between a couple of different ones, but really like with bulimia, it's like people think it's just like eating and throwing up, but it's like a lot deeper than that. It's eating, and like the form of purging can come in a lot of different ways, whether it's throwing up, over exercising.
What is purging? I'm sorry.
So purging just means getting rid of.
Is it withdrawals?
I'm sorry?
Little bit? Is it withdrawals a little bit?
No. So it's when the word purge just means to get rid of.
Okay.
So in eating disorder, a purging action is just getting rid of the food you ate. But, people think it's just throwing up. That's a big one for sure, but it's also over exercising. So, I'd eat and go to the gym for 5 hours, 6 hours to get rid of that. Just whatever steps you take that hurts your body to get rid of food that you ate. And it just developed and, caused a lot of issues in my life. Like I didn't even finish high school. I got, regular high school. I got homeschooled my junior and my senior year because it just brought so much depression and anxiety into my life. I couldn't even, function.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah. I couldn't even function, as a normal student, and so I just dealt with that up until I was 25 years old and got help. But I've always loved sports and stuff. And after high school, I started getting into MMA, and I loved training and all of that. And then I even had an amateur fight, and, you
knocked her out.
It was, and like fighting was my passion, but I could not even get a second fight. Even going into that one fight, like that eating disorder just took over every single second of my life.
Yeah. How did it, affect you? Was it just feeling nausea? Was it just the anxiety that you had?
Basically,
depression? Like what was the main kind of, I guess you could symptom of what kept you from, is it physical?
I would say probably just the mind thing. It took over my mind 100%, you know, if I was training and then, you know, you get hungry after training. So then I overeat after training. So then I'm like, shoot, what do I do now? Whether it's, you know, throw up the food or like go train for another 6 hours or, you know, not properly nourishing your food or not eating for 3 days and then overeating for 2 days. But it was just, and not overeating in a normal way, like overeating in a way where you disassociate while you're eating.
Yeah.
And you leave your body. And even when you're done eating, like it takes you a long time to get back in your body.
It's almost like automated, right? Like you're just eating just to eat almost.
Yeah. To get away, you know.
Right. Like emotional eating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. And so even just for me, like my mind would go blank. And I think that's the part that was like the addicting part to me, is that whenever something was a little stressful or anything, like I can leave my body and leave my mind through that, and then through the purging process too, because if I'm at the gym for 6 hours trying to work out off the food that I just ate, that's 6 hours. All I'm thinking about is those calories I'm burning. You know, I'm not thinking about life. And
sure. And you're not focused on the training. Like it's not dialed
exactly.
in.
And then the training part, you know, doing that, I was just, every time I trained, I felt like I got injured because, you know, when you're doing that to your body, how can your body be fit? And then the weight fluctuation too, man, I'd fluctuate 40 pounds every other month sometimes. So,
that's gnarly.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
And then the shame it brings. Like I was so ashamed of, you know, everyone around me would see that my weight was fluctuating a lot, and whether it was it'd go down or up, you know, sometimes it looked like it was a good thing, but then, you know, behind the scenes it wasn't. So, and then, just the depression, anxiety. I was really crippled. I wouldn't leave the house. You know, I'd have good weeks of training, but I knew I couldn't rely on myself. You know, I never could be consistent at anything. So
so with that condition, and don't get me wrong, I don't know too much about it, but it was like mentally more taxing than it was physical.
Absolutely. 100%. It was
like
mental more than anything.
Would, you know, kind of kick in, and then that will kind of, because, okay, so I know particularly women. That's why I'm actually fascinated with, you know, with this whole thing, because look, I know women that are depressed and are on SSRIs, you know, and they've had a traumatic background, like, and one with hardcore. I know ADHD gets thrown around nowadays, right, in social media and stuff like that, but they don't actually know what it means.
Yeah.
But anyway, I know a girl that actually has it, you know, and whatever, you know, they people are going to determine, like, how do you know if someone actually has it? Like, you know what I mean? There's going to be all that. But no, I mean, I think that.
And I will say I do have ADHD, like, diagnosed from a psychiatrist too. Right. But that also plays a lot into the bulimia. Sure. And I didn't know I had ADHD until I went into treatment and got diagnosed by a psychiatrist.
Like a clinical,
the doctor and my therapist, all three. Sure. And then even then I thought, I was like, because in my mind, ADHD is hyper, and me personally, I don't present that way. Like I'm not hyper physically, it's a mind thing. And then so they told me I had ADHD, and for like a week I was like, no, I don't, like, you're crazy. And then finally they explained it to me, and I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense, because it's so different. And like women and men, and they said it's very common for women with ADHD to have eating disorder, but not just eating disorder, specifically bulimia, because it's kind of that impulsive response. Because when you're purging, or even when you're eating, it's a very impulsive thing.
Yes.
You know, it's not like the restriction. It's like when you feel crazy and you need dopamine, like, what do you go do?
Yeah, the ADHD thing is especially with social media nowadays, right? If you go on TikTok, everyone and their mothers are saying that they have ADHD. And hey, look, I'm not taking away from that. They may have it, but that seems to be like the narrative when it comes to, like, when you see something. I don't know if it's self-inflicted, like, attention. I don't know, you know, I have no right to kind of, you know, self-diagnose or diagnose that, but
I totally agree though.
Yeah. It's just, maybe it's bringing a lot of attention to yourself, which I find what I'm leaning towards is what I think about it. But if you are clinically diagnosed, well, I'm sorry. And not that I'm sorry, like, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. I got to tread lightly when I say that, because real ADHD can be crippling from what I've heard from people that have it. So yeah. And go on. Like, so how did you get through that? Let's fast forward a little bit, and then you had all these kind of mental hurdles to deal with. What did you do to kind of overcome or start your journey and kind of healing that?
So basically, my family and close friends have kind of have known for a long time about the eating disorder. But again, it's not talked about. So, it's like, okay, Mikey for sure has a problem. But, when you think of eating disorder, you think of like a girl that's really skinny, like underweight.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So me, I never really was underweight, although my weight was fluctuating, and times it was unhealthy. But for the most part, when you looked at me, you would never think I have an eating disorder. So it's kind of hard, even for me to talk about. It's like almost even more embarrassing because it's like, not only do I have an eating disorder, but like I'm not even that small, and like that's kind of where my thought process was. But everyone around me definitely knew I had an issue, and
like the ones that were close to you, right?
For sure. Yeah. And I lived with my best friend for 5 years, and then I had to move back in with my parents for a few months just to get back on my feet.
Okay.
But that was the time where at the end of living with my best friend was the most I've ever struggled in my life. And then, but I could hide it because, her and I had different work schedules and I didn't see my parents much. And if I did, I only saw my parents for dinner, so, or for 2 hours at a time. So I could hide whatever was going on, even though I didn't very well. But it wasn't until I moved in with my parents where, I'm living with them 24/7. They know me best. No matter how much I wanted to hide what was going on, it was impossible. Not only did I like feel helpless and hopeless, but my parents could see it. And basically, like December, I guess, of 2023, the very end of it, my parents just kind of came to me after I was living with them for a while and was like, they're like, you need help. Like we need to do something because it's like, we can see it not, your life like not going much farther because I didn't even like want to be here anymore. And it was very obvious. So
what caused them to see that? Were you just, being like a hermit and laying in bed the whole time? Or were you like, did you have maybe convulsive like anger issues? Like,
I think it was just definitely not so much that because I did work and stuff and I had a job. And I think it just, I guess it was that because other than work, I wouldn't leave the house. Okay. I couldn't even be in a conversation and be present. I was completely disassociated and I wasn't in my body for months at a time. And, I couldn't even fake a smile. I couldn't fake a laugh. I just wasn't myself. I was literally like just a shell. And I think you could just be around me and like feel the hopelessness, I guess. And then, of course, the eating thing, like, I think, we went on a Disney trip and, I wanted to, after we ate, like, be away from the family. So it's like pretty obvious, I think it's not obvious, but then it's obvious to them. They're like, okay, you can't even be around the family after you eat. Like, what are you doing? Like, something's going on. Yeah. And just like all of that. So they came to me and they were like, you need to do something. We want to get you help. And then I just kind of broke down and I was like, I'm at the end. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm trying my best. Like, I've tried so much because I've done all the therapy. I've done so much therapy before that. I've done so much, all the SSRIs, all the anti-anxiety, like all the medicine doctors you could think of. So for me, I just was like, what now? And then that's when I found that you can do like an inpatient treatment. So you've got to go live there for like almost 3 months. But, to me, it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm thinking about my job. I'm thinking about life. How do I drop life and go live basically like in a hospital for almost 3 months? But I'm so grateful for my parents because like not only did they help me with it like financially, but, if they didn't come to me like that, then I wouldn't have never gotten the help. And then for me, it was kind of like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm so sick of living life like this anymore. I can't do it myself for sure. If I don't fix this in the time I go to inpatient, like, I don't think I'd be here anymore. So between that, and then I also knew, okay, something else has to be different because I've done all the therapy. Like, what's going to be different this time? And then that's kind of when I really stepped into my faith, and like, not only because I knew I couldn't do it by myself. So I really like went into my faith and, okay, I'm going to get help in this facility, but I'm also going to give my like spiritual self like to God and let him do the work with me. And so all the times where I really wanted to give up, I kind of like stepped farther into my faith and was like, please God, like, I can't do this by myself. Sure. I've already tried for 10 years. Like something else has to change. And I'm so grateful because with all that and in those 3 months of doing the inpatient treatment and all the prayer and God working through me, by the time I got out and went to outpatient, I was the most healed I'd ever been. I wasn't fully recovered, but I was the most healed I've been in, like probably 15 years or 13 years, like I said. And after that, I just kept pushing. Like it was the hardest fight ever. Like getting ready for a fight in fight camp or the boxing I did or getting ready for power slap. None of that compares to how hard it was to keep pushing every day for my recovery. Absolutely. And I think that's what, just drives me every day is like, all right, nothing is hard now. I'll go get slapped in the face because that doesn't feel like the end of the world. But to know if I didn't keep going in my recovery, it literally would have been the end of my world.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, thank you for telling that story. I know that, I like I said, I've talked to a lot of people, particularly women, about, different conditions. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say that, I know how you feel because it's not fair because it's, subjective to mm-hmm. you. But thank you for sharing. And also I want to point out that a lot of things actually, that it's crazy how you get that perspective because look, a lot of suicide rates, particularly for men, because I do look at that, statistic of like men growing up is that they don't look for help. Mm-hmm. And it's not just men, it's women. Mm-hmm. We as a society or people have a hard time reaching out for help. Mm-hmm. It might be an ego thing. It might be a pride thing, right? Like I'm always good. Like don't worry, I know how to handle myself when you're in shambles, And I think your parents, there was a little bit of, not a little bit, but a lot of like a divine intervention there. Yeah. There was personally for me, I've also struggled with like health issues and stuff like that, which I talked about before, so I won't go into it too much. I'm probably sound like a broken record, but I think, where do I even go with this? Because number one, I think, the divine intervention thing with your parents, had they not had been there, who knows what could have happened. But also they were your parents even more so, right? It's a lot different from asking like a really even good friend. They're your parents, like they're your bloodline. So they were there and they were like, they almost probably forced you to go, right? Yeah. Like it's almost like, dude, you need the help. Mm-hmm. A little bit kick in the pants. And it's crazy like what kind of perspective that you go through that you don't, like what you just said about when you came out of it and then, with the power slap thing, that's really what I want to get out of it. What I wanted to get out of this, because people will see like the power slap with our overall conversation. They'll see the power slapping. They'll see a pretty face, and they'll see, oh, this girl's just another pretty face on Instagram, maybe. But then people don't actually know, right? Mm-hmm. About even if you didn't post that, right? Mm-hmm. Even more so if you didn't post that. They'll be like, okay, whatever. But then you never actually know. This may sound cliche, but then you never actually know what people are going through. Mm-hmm. But my whole point is that after going through this power slapping, whatever, how much people think it's ridiculous, people's judgments about you, gets thrown out the window compared to what you just gone through, right? Yeah. It's almost like, that doesn't matter anymore. I have my life. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like I used to be a shell of myself. Now we're progressing every day as humans, right? We're never at like the end of our journey, right? It's a progress. We work on the progress and not the destination, right? And I think it's very, very powerful to have someone or something go through that, because unfortunately people don't realize that till they get into a crisis. Let's just say, you know what I'm saying? I have a hard time saying that word, existential crisis, right? unfortunately, people have to go through that in order for them to realize.
Yeah.
They can say it all they want, right? They can be like, yeah, that would suck if I had this and I'd want to commit suicide. But if you don't really feel it and don't go through it, unfortunately, it's almost like you almost have to reach rock bottom in order to really get a perspective and introspective to change your life.
And that's why too, like, I want to bring so much awareness to it, because you know, it's not so much I want to be like, hey, look how amazing my life is in a way of bragging, but I want to show people that felt the way that I felt, because I didn't even, like I said, I didn't want to be here anymore. And like, if you have been in that position, you know what it feels like. It's such a hopeless, like dead feeling. Like where do you even go?
You feel like you're stuck in a loop.
Absolutely.
Prison loop,
And then to go from that to like living a life that I literally love is what I want to show people. And especially because I didn't go a traditional route, or, you know, I'm doing the weirdest job ever, you know? So it's like you can, but like in that, you know, you can still find hope. So I want people to know, like, you can be struggling so bad right now and like feel like you wasted 13 years of your life the way that I felt. But if you can get over it, like, good, like life can be good. And I swear I did not believe that. If you told me this a year ago, I'd be like, for you maybe, but me, I don't even know what that feels like.
Well, what you just said, I don't think it's a wasted life though. I think that, not that you meant that, but then I think that those 13 years, or, you know, however much, I think that's what led you to here. There's always, if you haven't gone through that, I don't think you'd be where you're at, loving your life near what it is right now, right? You had to go through that. It's almost like a season of life where you had to go through it, and then spring came all of a sudden. And then you started liking your life. Listen, the most successful people in whatever you define success as, maybe you're a loving daughter, maybe you make a lot of money, whatever it is to you. I was talking to Evan, the UFC fighter, about this, right? You have to be a little bit delusionally confident, right? Power slapping, whatever. You know, they got, people judge that. But listen, who's the one making money at the end of the day? Who's getting brand deals? You may be a commentator within a year or two from now, getting even more brand deals. Who's to say, like, well, what are you doing, motherfucker? Like, you know what I mean? I mean, look at this. Just this alone. Just looking around at the studio, right? It's, you have to, you first imagine it, and then all of a sudden you put it into fruition. That's exactly what you did throughout that 10 years that you were going through all this stuff. And all of us, we all go through hardships in order to get us to where we are now. Just like you, what I talked about we have more things in common as humans that we do. Exactly. I started this podcast a year ago. This is insane. A little bit, right? Me and you are talking here about like mental health issues with these cameras, bringing awareness to people, and then getting more of a, hey, let's call it what it is, notoriety, right? On a platform. This whole thing seems bonkers, talking about power slapping, and then me and you just sitting here with two cameras that I'm going to post on YouTube, Spotify. This, like, where did this come from? But it is the introspection that you get throughout those experiences, right? It's kind of like, well, I don't want to live the life that I did anymore. And even though you weren't going through a health crisis, say just like for the industry part, it's kind of like, that could even make it click too. I don't want to work under a boss anymore. I'm going to do my own thing. And then I'm going to quit my job. I don't know where it's going to take me, but I'm going to do it. And to me, that's a little bit delusional, right? At least what we were taught in the system that we were taught to. Go work for, you know, the man, whatever. I'm not going to get into like politics and stuff. But then that's what we were literally taught in school and all that stuff. That's why we abide by working with someone. We're trading off paycheck for our time. And then we're just slowly rotting away. Probably got off the topic a little bit on that one.
No. You know I mean? 100%.
Yeah. So I really highly respect the fact. So what I got, and thank you for sharing, what I got from this conversation is like, hey man, number one, you never really know what you're going through, but I think I have a deeper understanding because I do go into that, and it does interest me. Just, you know, what people go through, suicide rates, you know, because I do want to help too. That's why I wanted to start this podcast. I've always said that this podcast was a self-improvement martial arts podcast, and this is exactly what it is, right? And I think that by you telling your story, does bring a lot of awareness. And I know that's kind of like a buzzword nowadays, right? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah, I want to use my platform to bring awareness. Well, how else are you going to do it?
Yeah.
You know, we're sitting here literally talking about it in this fucking studio with 3 cameras, and it's just crazy to me. And then what you just went through with bulimia, and then having to work in the industry, and then doing power slap competitions in order to get that notoriety. It's all a plan. There's a plan in place that only you know, right? And then it's all in your imagination and putting it into fruition.
Absolutely.
So before we quote unquote land the plane, there's a lot of nuggets I like to say in this conversation. And I think, it was really, you taught me a lot of things as well. So thank you for that. What would you say to someone that is going through, I obviously only you can define that because you went through it, but what would you say to someone that's going through, maybe particularly a female that's going through insecurity issues, mental health problems, and all that? What would your advice be?
So to your point, when I say it too, like I wasted 13 years, right now I don't believe that. But in the moment when I am thinking about reaching out for help, my thought process when you're going through the rough time is, I already wasted 13 years. Like, what do I do now? So that's my message, is kind of, no matter how much time you feel like you wasted, when you get to the other side of it, you'll realize that, yes, those were the worst years of your life. And maybe you feel like you're too old to chase your dreams, or too much life slipped away, but that's not true. If you go get help, and, even if you're older and it's the first time that you're good, life can turn out amazing. And I don't even regret those 13 years. They were, especially the last 5 of them were the worst years of my life. But being on the other side of it, I 100% agree with you that those were important, because I wouldn't be where I am now. And even apart from the success, just the fact that waking up and having a good day feels so good.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't just feel like a good day. I can truly appreciate how good it feels. Like, even if nothing great happens and all I do is go to Starbucks, get a coffee, and it's sunny outside, but the fact that I could feel the sun, and the fact that I could feel the happiness from the coffee, whereas just a year ago, nothing could have made me feel as good as a regular day feels, is like what you should work towards. And that asking for help, me personally, I didn't want to ask for help because I didn't want to feel like a burden, or I felt like I've asked for help for so long and I've gotten help for so long and I didn't change. I don't want to just let people down again. I don't want to ask for help when I didn't help myself every other time. Just ask for help again. You don't stop trying. Even if you've failed 100 times, maybe the 101 time, like, it sticks. And like, for me too, with God, and find that in your faith. And that right there was the change for me. It's like my faith in God, and He is the one that really transformed my life. And, I'm just so grateful for that, and to step out in that.
When you're talking about, again, before we ended, when you're talking about, the 10, 13 years, hindsight's always 20/20, right? We can always look back and be like, I'm glad I went through that, because it's gotten to me where I'm at. I think it's very important that, just what you said right there is gratitude, right? People have these like gratitude journals nowadays, but it's one of those things where, if you can wake up, if you've ever been through, say, someone with your condition, cancer, whatever it may be, right? And then you happen to come out on the other side of that, there's a whole paradigm shift in the way you think. And,
Absolutely.
And I don't think people could understand that till you, going back to what we were saying, till you actually go through it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying like, I hope that happens to you so you realize it. Not at all. I wish that upon no one. But just having to go through that, those hardships, those challenges. You just find faith, because I agree with you. You can't do it by yourself. And look, call it whatever it is. And I had this thought, it's kind of like, well, okay, now I'm only turning to God, or whoever your maker is. It's like, now I'm only turning to Him because I have this problem. No, actually, I think you're just, you got lost. You're like the prodigal son, and then you came back, and then you're building your relationship back up.
100%.
Right? So that's a good way to kind of see that if you're ever lost and you have nothing to turn to. It's almost like, look, if you, and here's another point is that when you accept that, you can let everything go and just live your life.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Even if you're even if you're facing death, right? And I could say this from like a personal experience. If you're facing death and you accept whoever you believe in, whatever, call it the universe, you know what I mean? Then it's not up to you anymore, right? It's not up to you. It's up to him.
Yeah.
And now knowing that you surrendered yourself, meaning not surrender, but you just surrendered yourself. You accepted whatever is going to happen is going to happen. Now all you can really do is live your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's exactly how I've been living my life. Like even all the crazy decisions that or everyone else thinks it's crazy. I'm like, you know what? Like what's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it just takes so much less pressure off me. And I've been able to do like fun, amazing things that if I would have overthought it or taken too much responsibility over it, it's like, okay, I probably wouldn't have made that decision. Like quitting my job to the outside world. If I explain to you my thought process behind quitting my job, you're like, don't leave your job. Are you kidding? Like that's the dumbest idea. But to me, it's like, whatever's going to happen, like I know, even if it's not what I want, it's the right thing that's going to happen. So I'm quitting my job. I'm taking that like leap of faith.
I think, and to add on to that, I think, just personally for me, you know what my intuition is? That's the divine talking to me, right? You have to go with your instinct that you were born with or your intuitions that you were born with, because other than that, you're just going to get stuck in the system that everyone's telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to be any other guy. Like, this is, I don't know, this maybe relates, but to be extraordinary to be extraordinary, well, you have to be extraordinary, right? You know what I mean? You can't be doing the same thing. It's that, I don't even know if it came from Albert Einstein, but then if you're going to do the same shit, you're going to get the same results.
Yeah.
Why not? If you're going to go to our serving job, which again, I'm really blessed with, right? We were really blessed with to be able to like it and then make the tips that we make, whatever. But then it's, if you keep doing that same every day, that's how things are going to work out. Like if you don't think outside the box and follow the system all the time, then that's where you're going to stay. And again, if you like that, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But
if you know deep down, like you love something and you have a passion and you're not chasing it, it's so hard to clock in for a job, no matter how much you love it.
Yeah. I'm glad that you also brought that up. Now, when I think about, going back to it, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm going to claw my way, dig my way any way I can to keep doing what I'm doing and not revert back to that, even though it was like a great resource and great money for us, right? It's kind of like, I don't want to be going in like a robot and, doing this song and dance like a monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, look, again, I want to thank you for your vulnerabilities. And I think it was very important to talk about. And I think you've helped a lot of people today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I've been so excited to come on.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.